Hello everyone and welcome back to the park. Today we have a fairly long video and I might actually just talk for part of it and then kind of go back to like just have music for the rest of it basically, because I haven't really been talking too much, and talking for almost 15 minutes straight may or may not be enjoyable for other people to listen to. I tend to babble when I'm nervous, so like you'd think I'd be really good at filling babble with, things that are engaging and sound good, and you would be incorrect. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, long video today. I was going through some old sketchbooks, and I should have a sketchbook tour coming at some point. I have like 5 or 6 little, like 5.5 by 8.5 sketchbooks that I've gone through, so it'll be a little bit substantial. I forgot to check if the camera battery was charged, and it wasn't, and I didn't realize that till I was done, and I didn't feel like redoing it at the time, so yeah, at some point it'll happen. Anyways, so I found this really cool like layout concept that I liked in one of them, and decided to work on it. It ended up changing a fair amount. Originally it was just the leaves and there wasn't anything else, but I didn't want it to be 100% focused on that. I wanted it to be more of a scene than like a portrait. I don't think that's correct. But when I went to pull it over onto the computer, I wanted to make it a little bit bigger. So the piece itself is actually 11 by 17. And it was created at 600 dpi, because that's the default that I work at, which means that my computer frickin' hates me, like so much. But yeah, I wanted it to be a little more varied in there, so ended up pulling it. And initially it was supposed to be like either like morning dewdrops or rainy, which is why the piece is still named Dewdrops, because it amuses me that it's just bubbles and it's not at all related to what it is anymore. So yeah, that's why it's called Dewdrops, because it ended up changing a fair amount. Ended up just taking out all the water droplets and just having it be entirely bubbles. And added a frog friend, which at this stage just looks like a weird dog, because I think I was watching a webinar or something. I couldn't look up reference on my phone, and I could not remember how frogs worked for the life of me. So, yeah, it's just a weird dog until I think about here, or at least it was this sketch layer. Yeah, here we go. It's about to become a real frog after my computer's done saving, because again, it hates me so much. But basically what I was doing was taking... It would automatically save once I changed enough of the pixels or whatever. And yeah, it didn't like me very much during this process, so it would just start saving and be like, I'm gonna go empty the dishwasher. But yeah, here's my frog friend becoming a frog friend, and I love this frog so much. Like I just want to put it on everything. It turned out so cute and so happy. Here is the first pass of the line art. I ended up doing it in 2 passes. The first one for the bubbles in a blue, and then the rest of it is in a dark green. I wanted there to be a fairly stark contrast between the 2 of them. And there is in the finished piece, but it's actually less severe than I originally intended. At first I was just going to do my normal, basically cell shading is what I've started doing now. So, fairly stark shading to begin with. So everything outside the bubbles was going to be like in shades of like green and orange with a bit of yellow for accent. And then everything inside the bubbles was going to be blue and purple with a bit of red for an accent. And I kept that to a point, but actually ended up going a fair bit, I don't know if organic's the right word for it, but just a little bit more realistic for it in the end. I didn't want it to be that stark. Though part of that is just because I ended up, for some reason that I cannot discern, whenever I want to try out digital painting, I pick it on projects that were going to be massive. So instead of trying it out on like a small canvas, I just started on my giant ones, and yeah, there was another save point. There we go. Got to work on some stuff again. Get back to line art. But yeah, so for some inexplicable reason, every time I decide I want to do digital painting, I do it on like 11 by 17 canvases that are 600 dpi, which means that my computer despises me. And this was no exception. I do actually really like how it turned out in the end, but it was kind of infuriating working on it, because I would get in a groove and then it would just autosave, and I didn't want to mess with the autosave because I have had a few too many projects where I'm like 6 hours in and like almost done rendering something and it dies and like the entire computer crashes instead of the program, and it just, I lose everything. Actually, at one point, for the longest time, I had some line art in the back of my portfolio at conventions of Urza from, what was it? Fairy Tale. I was like, what one anime that my sister like despised by the end but still watched all of? But yeah, so I had some line art. I really liked how dynamic it was, but I literally crashed the program like 3 times and the computer twice trying to work on it, and I'm like, I did things the same size, and it was just that one. That was the cursed line art. But yeah, so here was the just kind of filling in the bubbles, because originally I was going to do it painted in 2 layers. So, you know, do the coloring in 2 layers, have the bubbles be one and everything else be another. I ended up doing everything on the same layer. Here was me blocking in the colors. Originally the water was going to be really, really yellow, and then I realized I wanted the higher contrast, so it ended up being orange. Here was just I was just putting in placeholder colors, and then I started working basically from the back forward. So basically, if that makes any sense. And here is another save point. A little bit after this is when there was a point where I wish I made a choice I wish I hadn't, where instead of leaving a distinct like background line for like a hill or a field, I took that out and blended it in, which really took away a lot of the depth. So like we have like the frog and the lily pads and the leaves and the fairy in the foreground, and we have the reeds in the midground. And originally there was like that field hill sort of thing, like right at the end of the pond. I'm picturing this as like a little pond. Like it's not a lake, it's just a little pond. So yeah, at the edge of there, it was like a little hill, and that was the midground, and then it went into the background, which was just the blended sky. But for some reason, I took that out, and it really kind of never recovered from that depth-wise. I do really like how it turned out. I don't know, it just seems a little bit in the end, and watching back now, I can really tell when that choice was made and how it ended up that way. This step I do really like. I put in, because originally I was going to do my normal coloring as opposed to a painting. So I ended up putting a bunch of ripples in, and just it didn't look right with the painting style I was going for. So yeah, here was me just blocking in colors for the water. And I think part 2 of the trying to figure out what that little bank was, which could have been handled better. And just working through that. And I think that I've mentioned that this video could have been longer than it was. And the reason for that is because I've been trying to stream some on Twitch just to have something going on because I'm really bad at social media, but that's kind of something I do concurrently with working on things, so I'm hoping that'll help some. But I don't know what I'm doing. So for the final pass of the color, I think it was mostly the bubbles. Oh yeah, here's me reworking that little weird mid-ground area again. I never could quite get it to somewhere that I liked. Because I didn't want it to be green because that would take away from the reeds, and I just really should have left it where it was originally, but oh well. It just kind of ends. It's just awkward. It's just awkward. It's there, and it's whatever. But yeah, so I was trying to stream for the last part of painting this, and I did not realize that my settings didn't save the video. I thought that the program I was using to stream automatically recorded, and I was incorrect. So that part is just lost forever, which I apologize for. He was filling in the lily pads. They were a nice green, which I really liked how it. I really like how it looks with the orange in the water. When I started to add the ripples and the reflections around the lily pads, I realized I had more detail in the water. So you'll see me actually basically finishing all the lily pads and I think the flower, and then trying to take away all of the light that I added to the pond because it made no sense. I'm actually really bad at drawing water. I have a few like shortcuts that I use that work okay, but when I'm trying to do something like this, I'm just like, why did I do that? That doesn't look right. How do I make that look right? Which you'll see when it's done saving, whenever that is again. Let's see, there was a bit of darkening in this step too. It was just I finished just recording and then I realized there were just some minor things and they bugged me. There's reworking the mid-ground part 4, I think? But and then starting in the reeds, which were a lot of fun. You know, you'd think I would know what those were called by now, but I do not. I did really enjoy working on this though, because it was like really easy to get lost in the process, at least until it started to like save again in a way that maybe it isn't all of the time, because you know, I'd be working on part of it and then I'd be pulling colors from another piece, and if I want from another part of the piece, and if I went over parts of it, I was just blending, and I did really enjoy working like that. So that was a fun discovery. Oh, there's more saving. If I was doing this like properly, you know, I probably should like cut out all those saving pieces, but I don't wanna. But yeah, I ended up just pulling things like, yeah, here was when I was trying to figure out if I really wanted to go with the purple, and then I decided I didn't with the bubbles, so they ended up being a lot of light purple with some, I mean, the light blue with like a light purple accent, and then whatever was behind it pulled through some. And I made sure to use a really light hand while filling in the bubbles so that you could kind of see what was behind them and keeping them translucent. I'm not sure I succeeded the best in making them like really like realistic and round-ish, but I do like the translucency that ended up being in them, so I'm happy about that. And I think we are here we are at the end of the stuff that I recorded, unfortunately, and here is the finished piece. You can see the fairy friend and the frog, which is the best. And yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day.